I've got to be brave as a stud breeder these days. If I'm not brave, I can't be a good stud breeder. I believe sheep must be put under stress. I want about 20 to 30% of my sheep out there, my ewes, not being able to make it, just because of the conditions I put them under. Why do I do that? Why do I use that term bravery? Because you've got to be brave when there's a drought and you've just got to leave them out there. When there's a winter and you see all the other guys riding licks in from the co-ops and everywhere, you're just leaving your sheep out there. What happens, happens. As I say, we just leave them here. My whole farming is based on making it through the tough times, because the good times look after themselves. I think I must start off just by saying, that I see stud breeding as something rather different to the way a lot of people look at stud breeding. Firstly, I'd like to say that I'm a firm believer in the fact that there isn't something like one good breed and the others are all useless, or there are a couple of good breeds and the others are useless. Sheep breeds are steered in directions totally by breeders. So it's not the breed that's the problem, it's the person that's the problem. People are always the problem, never the animals. The animals are the easy ones to work with and the easy ones to know what to do with. The people are the problem, because they'll always want to run after something that is sensational, that is bigger or wider or something like that, but they can't just breed a type of animal that is suited to these surroundings. Secondly, I'd like to say I've come into these surroundings because this is where my sheep run. I think totally different about stud breeding to the way most people think about stud breeding. I grew up and I was very good at it, so I can talk about it. The fact that we bred sheep totally based on, I always say, 3 aspects, and that was I must be a good feeder, I must be a good manager, and I must be able to talk a lot of nonsense. If I could do those 3 things well, I could be successful with most of the breeds I found with, and I found with a good deal of them. And I was very successful. That's why I can talk about it. I know that's how I got my success, is by doing those 3 things the way I said. I feed them exactly the way the people will want to see them. I'll manage them to put that perfect picture in the sale ring or into the show ring. And I'll also just look after them and find out exactly what they want, and I'll give them that perfect picture, because people see stud breeding as trying to breed a picture. With my form of stud breeding, that's why we're out here in nature today. I look at it totally differently. I also say there are 3 things that are needed for a good stud breeder. And the first one would probably be what I'd call data collection. I've got to be able to keep data of all these sheep. What they eat, how they eat, when they eat, how they perform. These sheep here that you see behind me, all my sheep, they lamb on the veld, they get mated on the veld, they grow their lambs out on the veld with nothing other than rock salt. That I do for other reasons we'll get to a bit later. But as I say, for me as a stud breeder, I must collect data, I must know how to analyze my data correctly, I must know what a sheep looks like to be functionally efficient. I've got to have all that knowledge, and above all, I just have to know that the sheep I'm working with aren't seen as fed or managed or something like that. The moment I start feeding, I take that away from my sheep, from my whole selection process. I cannot see what is good and bad anymore. But out here, under these conditions, those 20 or 30% stand out like a sore thumb. They're easy to select, they're very easy to get out of your herd. But you've got to be brave to do that kind of thing. We all want to take sheep and we want to put them in lambing pens and give them, before they get mated, they'll get their, what's prikkelvoeding anyway. They'll get their prikkelvoeding and they'll be looked after. Once they've lambed, the lambs will get creep feed or something like that, and the ewes will be flushed. As I say before mating, that's the word I wanted to use, being flushed. None of that gets done on this farm. It's all totally natural. I believe sheep and cattle, nothing can compete with them when they're eating what you see here behind me. That is what they must be eating. That is what they must be utilizing. The sheep that can best utilize this for my stud and for my commercial industry is the sheep that will make the most money for me. We've got spoilt by comparing income. but we've forgotten about the expense. And the expense and the income determine my net profit. And that is what I must be doing. When I look at my stud animals, I don't think about things like what is going to be the most expensive ram on the sale, or what I must breed for this perfect picture. I'm thinking of my commercial animals. I'm thinking of my lot of commercial animals running out there. So I'm trying to breed a sheep that can best supplement them. So when I'm looking for rams, I'm asking myself questions like, why couldn't some sheep be loaded away today? Why weren't they fat enough? Why weren't they heavy enough? Why weren't they big enough? In the drought, what couldn't take the droughts? What can I do to breed a sheep that can take the droughts at still lower cost? Those are the things that I'm always thinking of when I'm busy with my stud selection of my stud herds. So that is what I mean by you've got to be brave these days to be a really good stud breeder, to be able to leave them there. We see commercial breeders as the ones that must be feeding sheep, because there you'll take your input costs and you'll take your income, and you can try and get to your maximum there where you'll have your best profit, and there you can feed in things to try and generate the highest profit. But yeah, with my stud breeding, I'm totally interested just how can I improve the sheep genetically, and the biggest stress I can put them on, I'm convinced that is what gives me the edge amongst many other stud breeders is out there. I put them under stress, and then I can do my selections properly. You need a bit of numbers, unfortunately, to be able to do that kind of thing, but that's the way I believe sheep breeding has to be done, and that you can do it successfully, and that your whole industry goes. People ask me, why Meatmasters? Why not any of our other hundreds of breeds we've got? What made me choose Meatmasters when I farmed with all these other breeds? I saw that as the Meatmaster. The Meatmaster must be an animal in perfect balance, first with nature, functionally efficient. Secondly, I believe emphatically in figures. I cannot do my selection without figures. So we keep very accurate data. We collect the data through various means. We do our weights obviously, but then we collect a lot of other data. What the sheep looks like phenotypically, how it walks, what the hooves look like. We have all things that affect the functional efficiency of the breed that we actually look at and we score the animals on. So those things are also all very important for us. So it's 100%, not 50%, 100% figures and sheep that are making money for you, but also 100% a sheep that is functionally efficient, adapted to your environment, capable of running at extremely low cost. Those are the animals that can make money for us. I just think back of the last severe drought we had with our Meatmasters. I said to Mario, my son-in-law, what are we going to do? Everybody is in a critical state. We were also in a critical state, so I had to make up my mind, what are we going to do? I said to Mario, let's sell half of our ewes, the one half of our ewes. Just remember the money's already in the bank, because next year we'll have to keep that lamb crop back. But immediately we could take a lot of numbers off the veld. So we had a lot of less sheep. Fortunately, it came to rain the next season, but because of the type of sheep we breed and that they lamb at 11 to 13 months, those ewe lambs were capable of lambing in their mother's place. So we lost no production. It's just that you got rid of animals earlier and you just not got to spend that money. You must know that's next year's money. But it helped us to get through the drought at extremely low cost, with no feeding, literally no feeding. We got through just because we could bring our numbers down drastically, but it didn't affect our production for the next year. Those are the type of things I believe you can get out of animals, and we're seeing other breeds starting to do this type of thing as well now. I think the Meatmasters were a wake-up call to many other breeds that they could see, but we're being successful with what we're doing, and they're also trying to go more back to that. Can't achieve your goal without having a very good recording system that you work with and that you get all your data from. It is really a case of my computer takes me to the crawls, and the crawls bring me back to my computer. But it is very important to know what your goals are in life, what you're trying to achieve. The ultimate is achievable, but we must remember we have really only got one goal, and that is to see how we can breed good animals, as I said, over and over for our commercial industry. For that, we need functionally efficient animals, and we need animals that have got very good breeding values. The breeding values give you the production and the reproduction side of your herd. You cannot see those things in animals. You can still see size, but you cannot see reproduction at all. You need a good recording system to be able to do that. So we look at our Bengue Farms program, and we work with Logix, and all the things get sent into Logix. So everything I have here is also available on Logix. The two systems combine very, very well.
When we talk about the elite awards that Stamboek is involved in, we want to encourage breeders to record the right properties or traits of their animals and to use that information correctly in the day-to-day management of their herds and flocks, but also to select the right animals for breeding purposes. We basically reward breeders on three different levels. The one level is on how comprehensively and how accurately they record their animals to make the right decisions. The second one is the reproduction levels of the herd or flock. Are they managing their animals correctly so that they produce well or efficiently? And then the third leg is the genetic levels of these herds and flocks. So in terms of the rand value or the profitability genetically, we also reward them.